What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing well. Today, as you can see, we are doing a little bit of adventuring here in upstate New York. We are currently here at a park called Watkins Glen State Park. It's an absolutely beautiful park. Unfortunately, it is still winter time and there's not a single leaf on any of these trees, so it's not ideal photographic conditions, but today we're going to take advantage of the landscape that was given to us. There's some really awesome waterfalls here, and I definitely want to do a couple of long exposures. However, the one problem is I left all of my ND filters for photography at home. And so the only ND filter that I currently have to do a long exposure with is this variable ND filter that I use for my video content. I know that there's a little bit of a negative connotation on the internet around using variable ND filters for photography for a couple of different reasons. The main reason is because they're not always as sharp as a standard ND filter that's just set at one ND amount. And so because of its ability to change ND amount and the way that the polarizing filters inside of it work, sometimes you lose image quality. And so today I'm going to experiment a little bit with this and see how the image quality with this ND filter, this variable ND filter specifically, stacks up. All right, we just got to this spot. It is absolutely ridiculous. As you can see, this waterfall is beautiful, and I'm definitely gonna be taking a couple of long exposures of this thing. But Nick, real quick, wants to talk about some of the gear that he brought along to take a couple photos here. Hold on one sec. All right, Nick, what did you end up bringing along?
So today I got my 70-200 and my 100 mil. And
Where's your camera though?
it's in the car.
It's in the car.
I brought great lenses for this, but no camera to use them.
Nick literally forgot his camera. He's pretty bummed out right now, but thankfully I got my camera, so we're just gonna take advantage of using my camera. Unfortunately, we don't have his, but we got all of his lenses, so it doesn't really matter. We have essentially the same exact setup. So let's get some photos. I'm gonna set up my tripod. I have it set up back there somewhere. I'm gonna plop this camera down, and then we're gonna take a couple long exposures of this thing using this variable ND filter. Let's do it. All right, so I thought for a minute that it was actually gonna be dark enough down here that I wouldn't need any ND filter at all, but I stopped my camera down to around f8, and when I started dropping the shutter speed to like 3 or 4 seconds, I realized that I actually did need quite a bit of neutral density on it. So I stopped my variable ND filter down to about 4 stops of ND, and I was able to take a photo at f8 ISO 100 with a 4-second shutter speed, and I think it came out really, really good. I was anticipating shooting this shot really wide because of the nature of this area, but I cropped my 15-35 all the way into 35 millimeters, and I thought that that was how the composition looks best. So I'm super happy with that shot. Optically, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not entirely sure how good the image is gonna look just because I did use that variable ND, but we'll have to take a look on the computer a little bit later to see if there is any optical degradation as a result of that ND filter. There's this really cool spot up here that Nick's hanging out at where the water actually comes over the path. You might be able to see behind me, it's dripping over, but down there, it actually comes down like a full-blown waterfall. So gonna finish up, maybe take 1 or 2 more exposures here, and then walk down there and see if we can figure out any cool photos to take in that spot. All right, we're making our way back to the camper right now. Probably gonna cook some lunch. I'm pretty starving. 2 photos real quick on this trip. The first one was just that quick shot that I took of the waterfall itself, that quick long exposure. And then the second one was of Nick underneath that other waterfall. I really like that first long exposure that I took. Super happy with that one and really curious to see what the quality of it looks like using that variable ND filter. Second one, I am not super excited about it just looking at it at the back of my camera, but it was kind of a cool concept, and I think with better conditions and more like actual leaves on the trees and things of that nature, probably look a little bit more cool. But Nick is taking pictures of me right now with his phone because he forgot his camera. So we're gonna make it back to the car right now, cook up some lunch, and we're gonna keep the day going and see what happens. So we made it back to our incredibly scenic campsite. Just kidding, we didn't actually camp in a parking lot last night, but we are cooking here right now just because we're starving, and this is where we parked before we went on that quick hike. So right now, Nick is cooking up some food right now in the kitchen on the Tiger Moth, and I'm gonna start scouting the next location we're gonna go to right now on Google Maps. To be completely honest, I don't really know any other super solid spots around here, but I'm gonna do a little bit of searching on Google Maps and we're gonna find something. Let me show you this kitchen real quick though, because I don't actually know if I've ever given you a tour of this kitchen. So let me show you it. All right, so the kitchen is pretty basic. There's pretty much two different compartments. This one right here on the left that I basically use as both my kitchen and my bathroom supplies. So I got like mouthwash, but then I also got like my coffee cups, some chili, some rice, stuff like that. And then here on the right hand side, I store all my pots and pans, as well as like paper products, some paper towels, some toilet paper, some Clorox wipes, stuff like that. And then this stove actually fits underneath this, and then it closes in on top of it. But right here, obviously we got some ground beef going, and then some water starting to boil that we're gonna throw some pasta on. Something about eating after a hike that makes it so much better. Look at this. Perfection. Doesn't get better than that when you're camping. I don't know if I would call this, well, we did camp last night, yeah, but we're in a parking lot right now, so whatever.
Loitering.
We're loitering. What's up, YouTube? We are back in the office. It was a super fun weekend trip out to Watkins Glen, and I think that we came back with at least one really solid photo that I was super happy with. If you're still with us right now, you're still watching the video and you've hung around all the way to the end, definitely go down below and give the video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it big time. It helps out the channel a ton. Thank you. I did mention at one point in the vlog that we were going to hunt down another spot to go take photos, but I didn't think it was really interesting enough, and I didn't think the photo was good enough for us to put it into the vlog. So I'll show you the photo right here that I took at that second spot, but I didn't really think it was good enough or interesting enough to put it into the vlog itself. But figured I'd show you it, and we're actually going to use that photo for the final comparison of image quality here at the end. So the next logical step is to take a look at the photos that we took over the past couple of days and kind of analyze them to see if variable ND filters, like the one I'm using right here. So let me show you how variable ND filter works real quick. As you can see, I'm pretty bright right now, and if I twist it, I'm going to get darker. And you're probably seeing the changes to my screen here as well, and that's because this is partially a polarizing filter as well. Variable ND filters actually are a polarizer inherently. So they're actually two circular polarizing filters that as they cross over one another, it becomes darker. So that's how it works. So the question is, are these good for photography, or should you avoid them entirely for photography? Let's take a look. All right, so the photo that you're seeing right now on the screen is the photo that I posted to Instagram a couple of days ago. I really like the way that this image came out, the colors and everything. I really liked it. I thought it was solid. However, the original image did not really look like this. So this right here is the raw file. As you can see, the colors aren't really as nice. It's a little bit darker in the foreground. The water doesn't really pop as much. And so there was quite a bit of post-processing that was done to that file to make it look the way that it looks on Instagram. So in order to analyze the image quality of this photo, I want to look at the raw file itself. I don't want to look at the edited photo because I did apply sharpening and things like that to it that could potentially affect the overall image quality. So we're going to look at the completely raw, unedited image. And so I'm not really much of a pixel peeper. So excuse me if I'm not like analyzing this image the proper way, but I really want to just dive into this a little bit and analyze whether or not there's any kind of awkward color shifts or any sort of sharpness degradation as a result of using this variable ND filter. So I had the variable ND filter around like 4-ish stops, and this is what the image came out looking like. So if we zoom in on it quite a bit, looking at these icicles up here near the waterfall, and it to me looks really, really sharp, at least here in around the center of the frame. If we zoom up here into these trees, to be honest, it still looks super solid to me. I'm not seeing any sharpness degradation, in my opinion, at all. The image looks super sharp. Comparing it to photos that I've taken in the past without any sort of filters whatsoever on my camera, it looks really, really sharp. I mean, it's a 30 megapixel sensor, which is pretty high resolution, but all of the details in this image to me look really sharp. One of the other reasons why people don't oftentimes recommend using variable ND filters is because of color shifts in the image. Oftentimes you'll get like a magenta hue in part of the image, and then the other part of the image will be a little bit green, or maybe vice versa, or maybe you only have one of those occurring. But oftentimes you'll have awkward color shifts that you tend to want to avoid when you're taking photos. This is kind of a difficult image to analyze for color shifts just because the colors are different throughout the frame and the foreground is really dark. So I can't really tell here whether or not there's any color shifts, but let's move on to the next photo and see what it looks like in terms of image quality. So this is the next photo that I took of Nick, and to be honest, I'm not going to use this for analyzing the image quality at all. I shot this image at f2.8. It was very experimental, and just because I did use an f2.8 aperture, I don't really want to analyze this for sharpness and things like that, just because the focus, yes, I did hit focus on him, but it was also at 1/25 of a second shutter speed, and so there's just too many factors attributing to it that could potentially reduce the sharpness, besides just the fact that I used this variable ND filter. So on to the next image. So this is the last image that I took. I haven't edited this at all, I don't think. Let me just hit develop real quick and hit reset to make sure I didn't do anything. Doesn't look like I did anything. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. So this ND filter that I have right now, it's an Aurora Aperture ND filter that allows for you to go from 1 stop of ND all the way up to about 9 stops of ND. And in this image right here, I believe that I had it at 7 or 8 stops of neutral density. Whereas the previous image, the one of the waterfall at Watkins Glen that's kind of in the valley area, that was at 4 stops of ND. With this image that I took with 8 stops of ND, you zoom into it and you'll notice that it's not that sharp. Even these rocks on the side that should be completely stationary, they're not that sharp at all. You move over here, you can certainly tell that it's not as sharp as the previous photo. Over here, I mean, the tree, you can't really count that because all of those branches are moving around a little bit because of the 1 second shutter speed. But these rocks on the side that I know were in focus, by the way, because I know I nailed focus on this image. I checked it like 20 times before I took it. They're not that sharp, which is odd. And even if you zoom in down here on this railing down here, you can definitely tell that it's not as sharp as the image that I took with this variable ND at 4 stops of ND. Very interesting. So guys, by absolutely no means was this a scientific experiment at all. I could have easily shot test charts all day long, but that's not my style. I don't like shooting test charts. I'm not really a pixel peeping type of person whatsoever. I like to test things in the real world and see the real world implications of doing various different things. And so using a variable ND filter, from my findings today, taking a couple photos, is that it's really inconsistent. Taking one photo with about 4 stops of neutral density gave me a really, really sharp, nice image. The second photo I took, however, with about 8 stops of neutral density, was really soft in a spot that I know it was in focus. I am 100% positive, but it still ended up being really soft. So the one thing that I would say is that variable ND filters are very inconsistent. In a pinch, they are definitely a viable option for taking a long exposure. Yes, 100% all day long. If you have the option to use a solid ND filter rather than a variable ND filter, a solid ND filter being an ND filter that doesn't give you the ability to change the amount of ND, I would say use the solid ND filter all day long, every day. Variable ND filters, just because of the different moving parts inside of it, they're definitely not going to be as high quality in most cases. Anyways, guys, thank you a ton for watching the video. As always, I appreciate you guys big time. If you haven't already, give the video a thumbs up. And if you want to follow along on more of my adventures and more of these photo vlogs, definitely hit that subscribe button as well. And I'll plan to see you guys in the video next week. Peace.